criminal courtroom where began the largest mass murder trial in this nation's history.
The murder trial of John Gacy did indeed get underway today with opening statements from the prosecution and the defense.
Well, my feelings, I'd like to see them, do something to him besides put him in a, institution. I'd like to see him be killed if I get my feelings to say.
Egan described Gacy as rational, premeditated, and evil, who killed his victims like flies when they got in his way. Carefully planned murders that resulted in bodies and bodies and bodies, day after day after day.
On March 17, 1942, John Wayne Gacy was born at St. Anne Hospital in Chicago, Illinois, to his father, John Stanley Gacy, and mother, Marion Elaine Robinson, as the second child and only son of 3 children throughout childhood due to a heart murmur that produced abnormal sounds during heartbeats. He required checkups and faced activity limits. In 1953, when he turned 11, after a playground head injury, he suffered headaches and fainting spells, and these recurring health issues through his teens affected his school life. His father, John Stanley Gacy, was a World War I veteran and auto mechanic, suffering from severe alcoholism. He repeatedly criticized his son's sickly state and subjected him to domestic abuse. According to Gacy's recollections, his father swung belts and tools whenever Gacy struggled with tools or said he was sick, with his father repeating abuse while drunk. Family members testified tension filled the home. His mother, Marion Robinson, tried to stop it, but his father demeaned him as sissy and shoved him into the basement corner, though no official records were filed with Cook County courts or police at the time. Relatives and neighbors testified that his father's violent behavior continued in the home. This environment later came to be seen as a key clue explaining his dual behavior, such as why he became so obsessed with a good reputation among neighbors and his outward appearance.
One thing John Wayne Gacy could not plan was the way he got that way.
My dad was domineering in fact. He had a different set of values, but also very stern individual. My dad drank a lot. When he drank a lot, he was abusive to my mother and to me, but I never swung at my dad because I loved him for what he stood for.
After graduating high school in 1962, Gacy enrolled in Northwestern Business College and completed basic business and accounting courses. Right after graduating in 1963, he got a job at a Chicago funeral home, driving hearse carriages and assisting body retrieval to start his work life without reluctance toward handling bodies. He took night shifts and emergency calls and processed funeral paperwork quickly, earning his employer's trust. Later moving to a shoe manufacturer sales job, he visited Midwest dealerships to promote new lines. Even driving hundreds of kilometers a day, he remembered family events of store owners, standing out with great sales skills and tact. In his company's quarterly evaluation then, as an employee with good people skills meeting sales goals, he was recognized enough to be recorded, and the experience he built dealing with people then is cited as a factor linked to building his trusted image in the community later on. On September 5, 1964, he married Marlene Myers, whom he met through a co-worker. His father-in-law, Fred Myers, in Waterloo, Iowa, was a wealthy man owning multiple real estate and franchise stores. Noticing his son-in-law's diligence and skill, entrusted Gacy with the overall management of 3 KFC stores he owned in downtown Waterloo. In the mid-1960s, the American Midwest was a time when the post-World War II baby boom generation growing up coincided with a booming dining industry, turning franchise stores into new community spending hubs. Becoming a store manager, Gacy kept a cot inside the store and worked there past midnight, managing the chicken supply chain and inspecting recipe standards and store cleanliness daily. The 3 stores he managed achieved high sales in the area. As store management stabilized, Gacy solidified his standing in the Waterloo, Iowa community. In 1965, he joined the Waterloo Junior Chamber, a young leaders organization, and took charge of planning local events, youth sports, and charity bazaars. By taking charge of demanding field operations, Gacy earned his peers' recognition, and 2 years after joining in 1967, he became vice president of the Waterloo JCs, the Waterloo Courier, a local newspaper. In a special feature on young entrepreneurs contributing to local development, highlighted Gacy's activities. Colleagues at the time remembered him as diligent, staying late to clean and help members with personal matters. In early 1967, amid high public trust, Gacy's first recorded sexual assault occurred while his wife and children were visiting her family. Gacy lured one of his store's teenage male employees to his empty home after work. Using his position as an employer, he brought the victim into a room and committed a sexual offense. He gave him hush money afterward, but the victim told his parents, and upon receiving the report, Waterloo police searched Gacy's home and found items matching the statement. Following this incident, Gacy was formally indicted, and his image as a young entrepreneur suffered its first crack on December 3, 1968, at a trial held based on the victim's courtroom testimony and physical evidence secured by the police. The Iowa court found Gacy guilty and sentenced to 10 years in prison. He was incarcerated at the Anamosa State Penitentiary in Iowa. Right after the conviction, his wife Mays filed for divorce, secured custody of their 2 children, and after settling the property division, left Iowa with the children. The franchise management rights built up in the Waterloo area, his reputation in the community, and his family collapsed in an instant, and his name appeared in the local newspaper after reports of the criminal verdict. Imprisoned at the Anamosa State Penitentiary, Gacy volunteered for prison labor in the laundry room and kitchen food service. According to prison administrative records, he did not violate the rules even once during his imprisonment, and no records of conflicts with other inmates remained. Joining the Inmate Activity Club, an inmate gathering inside the prison, Gacy helped prepare cultural events in the prison and faithfully followed the guards' instructions. In interview records, the officers in charge noted that Gacy reflected on his crime and evaluated his prison conduct as excellent, and based on this, the Prison Parole Board classified him as eligible for parole. On June 18, 1970, Gacy served 18 months of his 10-year statutory sentence and was released on parole as a model prisoner. He immediately left Iowa and returned to Chicago, Illinois, where his mother Marion lived. At the time, in the early 1970s in America, there was no computer network to check criminal records or imprisonment histories from other states in real time, and criminal records were also kept on paper, structured so that they were delivered by mail only upon request. As a result, Gacy's juvenile sex offense record and imprisonment history were virtually unshared with the Chicago police jurisdiction or the community, allowing him to start life in a new community without his past being exposed. On March 24, 1971, Gacy, who settled in Chicago, established PDM Contracting, a home remodeling and construction company, with his mother's support. He worked diligently on houses in the Norwood Park area, handling old plumbing repairs, painting, and roof repair construction, fixing minor home defects for residents for free, or generously discounting costs, earning praise, hiring local high school students, and troubled youth as site laborers, regularly paying high cash wages than going rates. Residents and parents regarded Gacy as a diligent contractor who provided jobs to youth and young people looking for work, and residents naturally gathered around him. From mid-1971, Gacy actively participated in community charity work and volunteer organizations. He prepared his own makeup and costumes and began working as a clown character named Pogo, visiting local democratic events and children's birthday parties dressed as a clown. He showcased balloon art and magic performances, building a friendly image.
He was a Kentucky colonel and a husband and a father of 5 children, and an actor dressed as a clown. John Gacy loves clowns.
To me, clowning was a way of relaxation for me. You regressed into childhood, you were able to relax, and you could be goofy if you wanted to, and still you had the facade of your face being covered.
Even today, on death row, he's painting portraits of himself as a clown.
I used to do clowning, and I don't know if you want to mention the name, for an ice cream company in Chicago who had 33 flavors. I'm serious, Bressler Ice Cream Company. I was their contractor, and I was also their clown.
As his construction business stabilized on November 1, 1971, Gacy purchased a single-story detached house located at 8213 W. Summerdale Ave, Norwood Park, Cook County, Illinois. While inspecting the wooden house in a typical neighborhood, Gacy found a narrow, damp crawl space about 1 meter high, located right beneath the floor. He confirmed that the square wooden door in the master bedroom closet floor was the sole entrance to the hidden underground space, then added a lock and covered it with a heavy wardrobe and items, blocking outsiders' access and view. Outwardly an ordinary house with green lawns and a garden, the sealed underground space under the master bedroom closet would later become the site where dozens of victims' remains were discovered in heaps. On January 3, 1972, Gacy lured a boy he met at the Chicago Greyhound bus terminal, Timothy McCoy, to his new home, murdering him first and secretly burying him beneath the house. As his first crime went unnoticed, Gacy subsequently began using his home in earnest for crimes. As confirmed in surviving victims' court testimonies and investigative records, his modus operandi began repeating in a fixed sequence. He would roll victims into his house or vehicle, talk with them in the living room to lower their guard, offer to show a handcuff trick binding both hands at once, have them extend their wrists to be cuffed, and subdue their bodies. Soon after, Gacy revealed his true colors, using the garrote method as his primary weapon. And most serial murders between 1975 and 1978 would follow this exact sequence.
Shoelaces, huh? You're in trouble now. Right. Aren't you afraid sitting that close to me? What the hell? Oh, this is too long. You don't need it this long. Okay, I had a rosary, which I carried in my pocket. I've always carried a rosary. It was my communion rosary. They said, well, what kind of a knot do you use? I said, what do you mean knot? When I tie things up, I says, depending on what I'm using it for, I said, the only thing I ever learned was from Boy Scouts is a tourniquet knot. He said, well, show us what that is. So I took, at that time, and again, it's together, but in order to demonstrate it here, I took the rosary and I said, well, here, you put it around. It's hard trying to do this. Why don't you put your hand out? Okay, here. What I told him, I says, here, all you do is you wrap it around, you put one knot in it. And I said, then you put a second knot in it, okay? I says, then you take a stick and stick it in here and you just turn this. And I says, it causes a tourniquet. I said, that's the only knot I ever learned.
Precisely the kind of knot found on the ropes.
As Gacy's modus operandi took root around 1975, missing person reports of young men around Chicago began to pile up one by one. Initially, runaway boys met near bus terminals became targets of his crimes. Later, Gacy used his construction company, PDM Contracting, to gradually incorporate its equipment and environment into his crimes, and company trucks became a trusted tool to transport victims without suspicion. Gacy approached construction job seekers and day labor youths, offering high daily wages in cash on the spot, and this method expanded his pool of targets beyond regular workers to include friends and acquaintances who visited the site at their recommendation. According to some survivors, it was also confirmed that he flashed a fake police badge to impersonate authority and force them into vehicles, though this was not the primary method. John Buckovich, a former employee of PDM Contracting, visited Gacy's home in 1975 to settle unpaid wages, and has been missing ever since.
What happened to, what happened in the Bukovic case?
I don't want to go into the other, the five that I know about. Just take it that I did. Buckovich is not one that I killed, so I don't know nothing about him. The little bit that I know about him is that he was an employee of mine. See, when you look about this recall business, and
I'm not a prosecutor, John, but you just...
I know you're not.
Buckovich
Wait a minute.
Is not one that you killed, which suggests that maybe, in fact, there were others that you did kill. And I'm not...
Okay, I'm sorry if I led you to believe... No, strike it then. That is wrong.
But it's too late to strike it. There are others he killed. Children he lured into his home anyway who didn't get out alive.
From April the following year, 1976, until before summer, Darrell Sampson left home to find a job and disappeared, and Randall Reffitt and Samuel Stapleton vanished simultaneously while out. Then Michael Bonin, William Carroll, and Rick Johnston also failed to return home after finishing their errands, and Michael Marino and Kenneth Parker went missing together downtown. New disappearances kept piling up. William Bundy, seeking construction work, vanished without a trace. Jimmy Harkinson, searching for a new home after moving from Minnesota, and Robert Gilroy, returning home late at night, also disappeared. Following that, John Scheich, who contacted Gacy over a car sale, Gregory Goldzik, who worked at PDM Contracting, and Francis Alexander, who had settled in Chicago to find work, vanished one by one through the points of contact in Gacy's business and relationships. By 1977 and 1978, disappearances repeated at a faster rate than before. Matthew Bowman and Robert Winch, who went out looking for jobs, and John Prestige, heading to a meeting place, were reported missing, and John Murray and Russell Nelson, traveling downtown, also vanished. Then David Tausmer, Tommy Bowling, William Kindred, and James Mazzara. As the disappearances of young men increased, bodies piled up in the basement of the house on Summerdale Avenue. Dozens vanished over 3 years, but no connections were found between the cases, and Gacy continued his crimes under the trust of the community. While continuing his crimes, Gacy, within the community, further expanded his influence. Around 1975, as Pogo the Clown, he participated in hospitals and local events, and at the same time began to show up in local political activities. He voluntarily visited neighborhood events, children's charities, the Norwood Park local parade, and neighbors' children's birthday parties, attending charity events and local parties on his own initiative. He showed balloon art and magic performances to the children, and neighbors accepted him as a kind and ordinary neighbor, continuing while running PDM Contracting. Free home repair activities for residents within the community became a factor in building his reputation. In addition, acting as a Democratic precinct committeeman, he supported the local party organizations, election activities, and participating in political events and fundraising. He built close ties with influential political figures. He also invited local police officers to his home, had regular drinking sessions to build relationships, and these connections allowed Gacy to remain a trusted figure in the community, acting as the background that kept his crimes hidden for a long time. Consequently, neighbors who joined his charity and political work remembered him fondly as a community-minded entertainer for children. On April 13, 1976, the Chicago Democratic Carter campaign event venue was the peak of Gacy's social activities. At the event, following the presidential election victory, shook hands with Rosalind Carter, wife of Jimmy Carter, who would become the 39th U.S. president, and took a commemorative photo. This photo later served as a symbolic record of how Gacy was accepted as a person in the community throughout his crimes.
And Pogo the Clown was the clowning that I did for charity hospital work for the Democratic Party, and Pogo the Clown is originally
A visit with Rosalind Carter, the First Lady during the Carter administration. Gacy right here is hiding the fact that there are bodies buried under his house.
I always felt that service community and community service to others, in my religious background, I felt if you serve other people, it'll come back to serve you. I've always believed that way with generosity.
Even as the disappearances of young men accumulated, law enforcement agencies did not move because information was not shared among police jurisdictions across Chicago. Missing persons reports received sporadically failed to connect into a single serial case, as most victims were runaway youths or day laborers. The cases were dismissed as runaways and left in files. This investigative flaw was starkly exposed in the disappearance case of PD and contracting employee John Butkovich. When his son went to Gacy's house to collect his wages and did not return, his father pointed to Gacy as the culprit and strongly urged the Des Plaines Police Department to investigate. However, the police at the time, symbolized even by a commemorative photo with First Lady Rosalind Carter, could hardly doubt his social reputation, and as a result of accepting Gacy's explanation as it was, the initial investigation was closed as is without investigating Gacy. While missing persons continued to pile up endlessly like this, the narrow and damp burial space beneath the Summerdale Avenue home became increasingly filled with bodies so that no more could be buried. Gacy personally crawled beneath the crawl space, digging out even the gaps between the heating pipes, and forcibly expanded the burial space, with the pit growing shallower. And pipe heat constantly applied, remains decayed rapidly. And starting around 1977, the stench of decay rose through vents and pipes to fill the whole house. Gacy explained away the odor as plumbing or sewage issues, deflecting suspicion from those around him, and to reduce the putrid gas and stench, he spread massive amounts of lime every night across the basement floor where bodies were buried. However, even the last remaining space beneath the basement becoming packed tight with piles of bodies and lime, leaving no room to bury even a single more corpse. Gacy, starting from March 15, 1978, changed the burial method he had long maintained. From then on, Gacy put victims' bodies in his trunk and dumped them into the river late at night from a Des Plaines River bridge. On December 11, 1978, at a pharmacy in Des Plaines, Illinois, 15-year-old Robert Peast, working part-time, told family and co-workers he was going to meet a contractor who offered him a new job and left, only to disappear without a trace. Securing the pharmacy's work logs and witness statements, Des Plaines Police Department investigators, while tracing Peast's whereabouts that day to finalize a remodeling contract for the pharmacy right before his disappearance, discovered that the contractor who stayed there was none other than Gacy the very next day, December 12, and abruptly summoned him to the police station as a reference witness. While previous disappearances of runaway youths or rootless day laborers were dismissed as simple runaways, leading to scattered investigations, the investigation into ordinary student Robert Peast, who had clear ties and a job, began to focus squarely on Gacy. Confirming Gacy's past sex crime record, Des Plaines police obtained a search warrant and entered the Sunnydale Avenue home on December 13, 1978, conducting an initial investigation.
See, there's a misconception of what the house on Summerdale is. It's not a house where you work 9 to 5 and come home, and it's like a house where you live in. The living room was the private office section. One of the bedrooms was a terrarium. The kitchen was more like a fast food kitchen.
He's painting a picture of a busy place, but conveniently omitting the crawl space, which he divided into plots like a cemetery, numbers 1 through 26, 6 feet by about 3 feet, and 1.5 feet deep. That was under the house.
During the investigation, the investigators detected an intense foul odor emanating from the floor vents whenever the heater turned on, which was a sign that the underground burial site Gacy had covered with lime had reached full capacity.
When I was arrested, they claimed, well, there was a putrefied odor in the house. And I contend that was a lot of hogwash too, because one officer, Schultz, claims on the 18th or on the 19th that as he came into the house, we had come into the house and my little Lhasa Apso was in the house. And of course he had been locked in the kitchen, all day. Well, a little puppy, he piddled. And while he's piddling and while he is doing his business on the paper and that, you can imagine what it smells like if you go into a closed room. And when the heat came on, as soon as the heat came on, it'd give you, that strong feces odor. I found it as odd when we bought the house that a house with a crawl space would need a sump pump. But then I learned the first time it rained that this ground gets wet under there and the crawl space actually floods up to a foot deep in water. And then as it recedes, it puts out a musty odor. There was always a musty odor in that house.
During the interrogation the next day, December 14, Gacy denied having seen the missing boy, denying the charges. But that same day, detectives searched the trash can in front of his house and found a clothing receipt and belongings of the missing Peast, proving Gacy's statement to be false. With Gacy's past criminal record unknown to police, the foul odor discovered in his home's basement, and even Peast's items secured, police regarded Gacy as a prime suspect and intensified the investigation by applying for a second Mexican search warrant, during which process reports from survivors scattered across multiple police stations came to the surface, re-examined along with existing evidence. In records the police found at the time from a worker at Gacy's KFC in spring 1967, Donald Voorhees, who reported his assault, confirming Gacy's first sex crime. Robert Donnelly, who sought a job on Jan 26, 1977, was lured to Gacy's house and tortured, but escaped and reported it. Jeffrey Rinnell, abducted in Chicago on March 21, 1978, who suffered drugging, confinement, and torture, but survived, then tracked Gacy down and reported him, and after being hired by PDM contracting on May 13 of the same year, who faced multiple death threats at Gacy's house. The statement of David Cram was also subject to review. Common victim accounts of the luring, binding, and house layout matched, leading investigators to cross-reference fragmented testimonies with the Robert Peace disappearance. Convinced that Gacy was a serial killer, repeating the same crime for years, they took action. With a 24-hour surveillance warrant approved, investigators deployed 2 vehicles starting Deck 18, tracking Gacy's every move and cutting off escape routes. The next day, Gacy drove recklessly through Chicago streets to lose detectives, then suddenly pulled over, inviting them to dinners at diners or offering drinks at his house. Showing unusual behavior changes, he began losing composure as the net kept closing in. A pressured Gacy visited a Chicago law office on Deck 20 and began speaking about his involved cases. The next day, with arrest and second search warrants issued, police entered the house. Wearing gas masks, investigators crawled into the narrow crawl space underneath and dug through dirt mixed with lime powder, unearthing a human femur in the shallow ground. And during further excavation, multiple unrecognizable remains were exposed one after another. 1 secret burial traces were found in the basement. Murder charges were effectively confirmed, and Gacy, watching the excavation, was arrested on site. Jailed in Cook County Jail right after, Gacy, on Deck 22, confessed to his lawyer that in the crawl space below, he had buried the remains of multiple victims. Later during police interrogation, the crime scale and disposal methods were detailed, and Gacy stated he killed over 30 young men. He also stated that later, running out of space, he dumped some bodies in the Des Plaines River, finally revealing the truth behind years of serial disappearances. With Gacy's confession secured, forensic experts and a team entered on Deck 28 to excavate his house and nearby dump sites. Using tools and special equipment, they dug up the floor under the house, recovering 26 bodies from the crawl space and 3 more on the property grounds, uncovering 29 remains within the property. The investigation team then searched the Des Plaines River area mentioned by Gacy, Timothy O'Rourke, Frank Landingin, James Massara, and Robert Peast, recovering 4 additional bodies, bringing the total count of victims identified from his home and the river to 33. Known as a trusted figure in the community, Gacy's hidden reality and his years of serial murders were exposed together. The investigation dominated the media and shocked American society.
Gacy, a building contractor, was arrested in December 1978 in connection with the disappearance of a 15-year-old boy. Later that month, police began uncovering bodies from a crawl space under Gacy's suburban Chicago home. 29 bodies were eventually found on Gacy's property, 4 others found in a nearby river. Gacy had confessed to the killings, but his lawyers claimed he was insane. Gacy said he has 4 personalities.
Most remains moved to the Cook County Examiner's office, suffered heat from pipes, long-term burial decay, and damage during excavation, making identification difficult. 1970s forensics had limits in DNA identification, so some victims remained unnamed, classified under unidentified victim numbers, prolonging the identification process. Following court demolition approval next April, the crime scene house on Summerdale Avenue was demolished using heavy machinery. On February 6, 1980, at trial in the Chicago Criminal Court, Illinois, Gacy's defense argued that at the time, he was in an uncontrollable state of insanity, pleading not guilty.
Defense attorney Robert Mata countered to the jury that by any standards, Gacy is insane. He sleeps with corpses in a house where bodies have been buried for years. Can that be normal? What kind of a mind is that? The defense will show Gacy is deeply ill.
Loving and caring. I've always looked after my children, even now. No, not as strict as no. A lot of things that my dad did, I refuse to do because I don't believe in hitting children. I don't believe in spoiling a child either. My values are such that if you give enough love to the children,
Of murdering 33 kids, and you say you didn't believe in hitting.
Well, anybody that knows, you see, first of all, you're basing this garbage on on what you've heard of me.
And the prosecutor who put him in jail says Gacy is a ruthless and sadistic killing machine.
He's responsible. He knew exactly what he was doing. He planned it in advance. He carried it out, and he enjoyed it.
And he admitted it. In fact, boasted of it to the police.
However, based on Gacy's detailed confession and site excavation records, such as using lime in the crawl space and impersonating police while luring victims, the prosecution presented evidence showing premeditation, refuting the defense's claims.
In regard to going out into the garage, yes, I know I went to the house, and yes, I know I walked in the garage, and they asked me where the last section of concrete was poured. Okay. I said, there's the last section where the last section of concrete was poured. They are the ones that took the orange can of paint and said, here, put a mark there. So I put an X there.
So the paint was not to identify the place of burial.
No, it never was.
He made more than just an X on the floor.
He sprayed a stick figure with the orange spray can in the garage. Not just a mark, a stick figure showing the orientation of the body. Right underneath that stick figure, exactly where he drew it, pointed in the direction he drew it, was the body of John Butkovich.
On March 13 of that year, after reviewing the physical evidence and confession records, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all charges.
John Wayne Gacy was found guilty today in Chicago of the murder of 33 young men and boys, all of whom he either induced or forced to have sexual relations with him. He buried most of the bodies under his house and got rid of the others elsewhere.
It took the jury of 7 men and 5 women less than 2 hours to find John Wayne Gacy guilty of murdering 33 young men. Gacy was convicted of murdering more people than anyone else in U.S. history. He showed no emotion as the verdict was read.
If you want to charge me with anything, charge me with complicity in 2 of the murders.
Just 2?
That's all I know about. Robert Peace was killed by another individual in my home.
How did he get to your home?
He was transported to the house by another.
How did the other, whoever he was, kill Robert Peace?
I believe he was strangled.
You were there.
Not during the crime, but I was there afterwards, and I watched the removal of the body.
And what happened to the body afterwards?
It was taken to the river and dumped in the river.
Did you help do that?
Yes, I'm in complicity with that. I've always contended. Don't look at me as an innocent babe of the wood. No. I'm not only the victim here. I may be the 34th victim, but there are other victims to this crime, and that is the family, and nobody gives a damn about the families. That one mother that gets on television all the time who thinks I should be given 33 injections, I think she ought to take 33 Valiums and go lay down.
The presiding judge sentenced John Wayne Gacy to death, convicting him of 33 murders. And on May 10, 1994, at Stateville Correctional Center, Illinois, he was executed by lethal injection, bringing an end to the double life of Pogo the Clown that had shocked the local community. According to execution reports and autopsy records, his death was confirmed, but the unidentified remains left beneath his home crawl space and the tragedy of the missing victims' families remained an unresolved, long-standing cold case. 8 of the excavated, unidentified remains remained under unidentified victim numbers for years. On October 12, 2011, the Cook County Sheriff's Office for the long unidentified victims' identification applied advanced forensic DNA technology and launched a reinvestigation. As a result of DNA matching investigation, the forensic team confirmed that the DNA of the remains classified as victim 19 missing at the time matched the buried family. Identified victim 19 as William Bunny in 2011, and in 2017 the remains of victim 24 as Jimmy Hutchinson, a runaway boy, and in 2021 the remains of victim 5 as Francis Alexander, a boy missing in 1976. The respective families received the remains, allowing them to hold funerals and mourn. As of 2026, 3 of the 8 unidentified remains have been identified. Victims 10, 13, 14, 21, and 28 remain unidentified without their names, listed under numbers at the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. Law Enforcement and the Forensics Institute are preserving DNA profiles, dental records, and evidence for retesting with future DNA technology, which will become even more sophisticated. And for the families of the 5 victims known only by numbers, the time of disappearance continues even now.
What do I think of Jeffrey Dahmer? I don't know the man personally, but I'll tell you this, that's a good example as to why insanity doesn't belong in a courtroom. Because if Jeffrey Dahmer doesn't meet the requirements for insanity, then I'd hate like hell to run into the guy that does. Beyond that, I have no comment on Jeffrey Dahmer because I'm not Jeffrey Dahmer. And I would not, whether it's Berkowitz, whether it's Bundy, or any of the others, or Charlie Manson, see. I don't comment about other cases for the simple fact is that I wasn't there. God, I hate that when they put me in the same club with them. I'm just as lovable and jokeable as I was back then. You know, I don't sit around worrying about the death penalty or things like that. No.
How could you not?
If you believe you've lived your life the right way, then you do not have nothing to fear. In my case,
You're not worried about facing God.
no, I'm fairly comfortable with him. I've been at the Catholic services. I'm the server for the priest for the last 10 years. I have no qualms about doing that. I've had confession, I have communion, and I am at peace with myself.
The smile of the clown that made children laugh and the ruthless gaze toward the confined boys coexisted within a single person. A friendly volunteer image trusted by the local community broke down people's guard. And familiarity masked the hidden danger, the deepest darkness of human society, behind a face that anyone encounters, remained as the fact that it can emerge.